Hey everyone, so you're riding with Kenny. It's one of those cold, miserable, nasty days, like a little bit drizzly, rainy, just ugh, you know what I'm talking about. Just kind of like goes through you, where, kind of want tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwich, one of those days. Anyway, so riding to work here. I wanted to discuss something with you guys, and I've spoken about this before, but I want to hit on it again. And it's in terms of like mechanics in this industry, and I'm sure it applies to other industries as well, but I'm going to focus on auto mechanics because that's the field that I'm in. Now recently, what's his name? Farley, the guy who runs Ford, their CEO, he made a statement or something that they have something like 16,000 empty bays or lifts because they don't have technicians. I don't know if it was 16,000 or 60,000. I don't remember what he said, across the country. I don't really follow stuff like that. However, I've seen a lot of videos from other creators and other like podcasters and stuff like that that speak of these things. And they were talking about what he was talking about, how, there's a big gap in getting good qualified technicians into this industry. And he was almost like, he couldn't understand why. Well, flat rate is why. And flat rate has some very good points to it. It really does. You can make really good money on flat rate. But here's where the problem lies. And I've covered this before, but I'm covering it again. At the dealership level, okay, we're just going to use 1, 2, and 3. You have a level 1 technician who is the highest level technician you could possibly have. Fully certified in every single thing that manufacturer has. I don't care if it's Chrysler, Ford, GM, Toyota, Hyundai, Kia, it doesn't matter. Number 1, let's say, is the highest level. Each manufacturer has their own tiers. Number 1's the highest level. A number 2 technician is somebody who's can do a lot of the work, but is not that qualified in terms of they haven't had the schooling and everything else. A number 3 level tech, let's just say, is an entry level tech. They're mechanically inclined. They're new to the business. They were a lube tech, but they showed promise, so now they've kind of moved up in the world. So at the dealer level, what happens is, let's just say you get a recall that comes in, and it's a complicated recall. They may say this is a level 1 tech recall, meaning only the techs that are fully certified can do this recall to make sure it's done correctly. Okay. Let's just say it's a hood latch. I'm not saying that is a recall, but I'm just saying let's say it's a hood latch. Now, normal warranty time to diagnose and replace that hood latch, let's just say, is 5/10. Okay? 5/10. And then a lot of times you have, on newer cars, and some of them, you may actually have to do some type of a reprogramming for that latch, believe it or not. I've seen it on Jeeps, where you got to do some kind of a configuration reset when you change the latch. Now that it's a recall, it may only pay 2/10. Now, what does that 2/10 include? That 2/10 includes the technician going up to the service writer, getting the paperwork, walking out into the parking lot, finding the car, getting that car into the shop. Okay? Who cares if it's at the other end of the parking lot? Who cares if the key fob doesn't work? Who cares if, it's a blue Grand Cherokee and there's 37 blue Grand Cherokees out in the parking lot? That doesn't matter. Trust me, I've run into this. So you have to find the right car. Then you got to fight through whatever traffic that might be there to get the car in the shop. Then you have to go punch into the ticket. Then you have to go to the parts department to get the parts. Who's to say that the parts are ready for you? There's nothing to say that the parts are ready for you. Excuse me. Then you get to walk back to the car, do the recall, put the car outside, give the paperwork to your service writer, and in the meantime, too, somewhere in there, you had to put your notes in for 2/10. How long is 2/10? Anybody know? That's 12 to 17 minutes. That's all it is. It's 12 to 17 minutes. That's your window to do all of that. However, if it was under regular warranty, it would be 5/10, which is still not good time. But if you look up cash labor, meaning what a customer would have to pay to do that job, that could be 9/10 or 1.2 hours. It's possible. It really depends on the job. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, how is that fair? How is that fair that a customer has to pay more? Well, think about it. When the car is brand new from the factory, things are supposed to be much easier to fix because, everything's brand new. As it gets older and things rust up and things happen, it's more difficult to replace the part. Plus, the manufacturer pays less time to fix something because they figure you have a captive audience of vehicles. So you're going to be working on, let's just say, Grand Cherokees. You're going to be working on hundreds of these Grand Cherokees throughout a year. So during that period of time, you should be able to figure out how to knock that job down to 8/10 or whatever. Doesn't always happen, or 6/10, or even 3/10. 3/10 is ridiculous. Every once in a while, you would get a recall that paid something good, and you could bang it out quickly. It happened. Not often, but it happened. There was a recall on Grand Cherokees when they first came out with the electronic shifter, that weird T-handle, click thing, that electronic, whatever the heck they called it. I forgot what they actually named it. But there was a recall because they realized that people could accidentally leave the door open or go to climb out and accidentally leave it in gear, and they could get hurt or killed because they could run themselves over. So they had a recall that was reprogramming, where if you open the door, the car would automatically go into park if you were at a stop or under like 1 mile an hour or something along those lines. Because if you were going down a highway and all of a sudden your door opened, it's not going to throw it in park because it won't do anything really. So that recall involved, you had to reprogram like the PCM, the TCM, the body control module, the shifter module, the instrument cluster. There was something else involved. When that recall came out, it paid 2/10 to do because Chrysler had reprogramming that they would only pay 2/10 for. Most of the reprogramming was only 2/10. So this recall came out and they would pay you 2/10. However, the actual time that it took to do that recall was about 90 minutes. 90 minutes. How do you justify that? And you know how they justified it? They said, well, you could be working on something else while you're programming it. How? How can we be working on something else programming it if this car is in our bay and it has an umbilical cord to the computer to run the program? How? Yeah. So technicians were losing out. Like, we actually got to a point where we're like, we're not doing these recalls. We won't do them. Somebody's got to pay us to do these recalls. You got to pay us the time we have into them. Yeah, we actually had to fight for that. I mean, how ridiculous is that? But that's a common thing that happens. What else? Like I said, it's not all bad. It can be good. But the manufacturer, like, once they realized, like, there was a problem, I remember, with GMC Envoys where one of the axle seals would start whistling or making like this high-pitched squealing noise. And it was basically the finger on the wine glass, and that's what it was. And it was coming from one of the front axle seals. It was always the left front. Yeah, it was always the left front. So to change the left front axle seal paid 1.9 hours. Well, shoot, you can get that done in an hour. If you hustled, you can get it done in an hour. Well, guess what? GM realized it was a problem, and they started seeing that technicians could do this job quicker because they got used to it. So they lowered the job from 1.9 to 0.6. 0.6. And that was such a common thing to happen. It's like they would constantly lower the labor times down. And it's like, how do you expect somebody to do this job in that amount of time? It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. You know, a lot of times too, like if a battery went bad in a car, a newer vehicle, okay, to get a replacement battery, for us to do it as a technician at the dealership, you had to go get this thing called the GR8, and you would have to hook that up to the vehicle, and it would have to run a test on the vehicle. It would run the test on the vehicle to make sure that the battery was no good. Most of the times, it would tell you, well, you got to do a 30-minute charge or something like that. Okay, so you'd have to do the 30-minute charge, because then you'd have to get a printout where it said, yeah, well, you were right, the battery's no good. Okay, so you do all that, you get the printout, now you have the printout, now you have justification to go get the battery. You go get the battery, you install the battery, you set everything in the car, you set the radio stations, do all that stuff, you set the clock, blah, 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 park it outside, 2/10. You got paid 2/10 to do that job. How long did you spend? You spent a good hour. You spent a good hour doing it. You got paid 2/10. So that's the reason a lot of technicians are leaving this industry. I can't tell you how often I hear of technicians just outright just getting up and leaving dealerships for that very reason. Here's another one that you didn't know. And this happened a lot, and this was one of my main stickling points at the dealership, and one of the main reasons I left. There's a few reasons that I left, but this was one of the main reasons, and this was like something that just kept on happening over and over again. We had somebody come in with a Dodge ProMaster van, and it had 120,000 miles on it. It was a work van, and he blew the transmission. He didn't buy it from us. He never serviced it with us. Nothing. Never did anything with us. He towed it to us because another dealer had declined the repair. We're not going to warranty this. So he called our dealership crying and, boo hoo hoo. This van that I bought, it's 4 years old, and it's, 4 times over on the mileage for the warranty, but nobody wants to help me. So our dealership said, oh, we'll help you. We'll help you out. We'll put your transmission in. We'll take care of it for you. It's called Goodwill. A lot of dealerships do Goodwill. And you know what? I have no problem with Goodwill. I have no problem helping people. What I have a problem with is now I'm dealing with a car, truck, whatever, that yes, it's 4 years old, up in the Northeast. It's out of warranty, and it's well out of warranty. Even if they charge sometimes they'll say, we'll pay for parts, you pay for labor. Or we'll pay the labor, you pay for the part. However they decide to do it. Sometimes they do that, sometimes they eat the whole thing. The technician will only get warranty labor time. And the warranty labor time on one of those things was, I think, 5.5 or 6 hours at the time. I don't recall. And I remember doing one, and then I got the claim kicked back from Chrysler. Okay, well, I'll discuss that in a second. So I was infuriated with this one vehicle. It's like, first off, this guy's never been here. He has no history with us whatsoever. Why are we doing this? And I asked the service manager this question. Oh, well, we're going to try to get him as a customer. He ain't going to come here for nothing. He will not come here for anything. I guarantee you. Oh, you don't know that. You don't know that. I go, no, I do know that. You know how I know that? Because his front tires have cords coming out of them, and his front brakes are at like 1 millimeter or less. It's like a sheet of paper. I said, we called him up. He said, no, I'm going to bring it to my mechanic when you're done with it. So, but the dealer doesn't care because the dealer gets paid by the manufacturer. The manufacturer will still pay for that because they have a certain window of time, like they're allowed to Goodwill certain things. Like they have a certain, I guess, threshold that they can hit. But who gets screwed in the end? The technician. So the technician gets warranty labor time. And I always told him, I don't care if you Goodwill it, but you should give me the labor price or the labor time of all data or something, which was like 9.7 hours. Because warranty time, like, it's out of warranty. Why should I be the one that suffers? So that was a very, very common thing. And that was like one of the last things that was part of the straw that broke the camel's back. But I actually had a claim kicked back on me on a ProMaster. And I remember the service manager come back to me, like, mad at me. And I'm like, what did I do wrong? Well, you didn't replace the transmission mount. Okay. Why should I have replaced the transmission mount? Well, if you read in the procedure to do that, they just updated it when you did this, and it tells you that they want you to replace the transmission mount as part of the job. Well, that wasn't there before. Right, but you're supposed to read that. I'm supposed to read that every single time I do a job. No matter how repetitive it is, they want you to read the repair procedure each and every time, regardless. How ridiculous is that? Seriously, how ridiculous is that? You would think in a situation like this, and in most of these situations this is what happened, but what would happen is they would actually put a note in the parts columns, like for the parts department, showing that if you're selling this transmission, this mount has to go with it. But they didn't with that. So sometimes there would be revisions like that, and the parts department would say, oh, you got to do, oh, you're doing this? Well, you got to do this too. Really? And then you go look it up, and sure enough, you had to do that also. And guess what? Didn't change your labor times. Even if it was something that you had to spend more time doing, it didn't change your labor times at all. So, yeah. So, I want to call him Chris Farley, but it's not Chris Farley. He's related to Chris Farley, the late comedian, but it's not Chris Farley. Jim Farley, maybe? I don't know. But in case you're wondering why technicians are leaving the dealerships, that's why. They go to private shops. They open their own shops. You know why? Because they can make a lot more money. They go into different fields, electricians, plumbers, stuff like that. We're already electricians and plumbers. Why not go into that industry? You make a heck of a lot more money. You know, when I started in this industry, it was a good industry to be in. It still is. It still is, if you find the right place. I don't like the chain stores that are like the muffler places, the tire places and stuff like that, that make their technicians upsell the daylights out of everything. I've never been a fan of that. At least the dealership I came from, we had stuff that we could upsell, but they didn't push it. They didn't push it because unless I saw that it was a necessity, I wouldn't push it. You know, there's certain things. Yes, I believe in power steering flushes. Yes, I believe in brake flushes. Yes, I believe in tranny services, tranny flushes, if you do them every 30,000 miles. If you go beyond that, like 45 or 50, once you start going beyond that, no, I wouldn't do it. I'd leave it alone. But like I said, on this van, I'm going to be changing the filter at some point. It should be coming up probably within the next 4 weeks, I would think. But yeah, so anyway, I just wanted to get that off my chest in regards to why technicians are leaving the industry. You know, and flat rate. And flat rate is the main cause. You know, and I mean, there's other things, but I don't want to get into it with this video. All right, well, that's it. You heard enough of me rambling. All right, guys. Well, I hope you got something out of that. If you did, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. All right, have a great day. Keep wrenching.